Welcome back to another episode of Purpose Through Fitness, a podcast and community designed to encourage each of you to live a more positive, healthy, and purposeful life. Through fitness, I believe we can uncover a lot about ourselves, and through this, we are able to focus more clearly on our passions and purpose. Join me as we take the journey of life together and seek out answers to finding and pursuing our purpose. I am so happy and blessed that you could join me today, and I hope that you begin making positive changes today. Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Kevin Fetish and this is the Purpose Through Fitness podcast. We are attacking 2020 with everything we have. I'm so humbled and blessed for everyone out there that has joined me today. Today's episode I think is very important when starting a new year. You have new resolutions, you have new motivation, new inspiration to push yourself and be a better version of yourself than you were the year before. And what I want to talk to you about today is failure. We live in a society today where failure has such a negative connotation that we are wired to avoid failure at all costs, when in fact, without failure, there is no success. Any great story you've ever heard, any great business that has ever been created, any great athlete that has reached the pinnacle of their sport has gone through a lot of failure in order to get there. I'm hoping through this episode, you can change your mindset on what failure is and approaching failure in such a way where if you learn from your failure, then you can never lose. So we're going to get right into this here, and I actually want to start with the definition of failure, and I wanted to come up with something on my own, so I was seeking out a few different articles to see what people said about failure, and I went straight to the dictionary, and it's interesting to me, and no wonder we have such a negative connotation of failure, because if you go to the dictionary, there's a few different meanings of failure. Lack of success, the omission of expected or required action. There's also the action or state of not functioning, an unsuccessful person, enterprise, or thing, the collapse of a business, a sudden cessation of power. All of these very negative connotations to failure. So I wanted to come up with my own definition of failure. And what I came up with was this: a necessary tool in the process of learning that is required in order to succeed. I think that's simple enough and sums it all up. I'm really hoping that we can change the world's perspective on failure and allow us to go through failure more often and learn from what our mistakes may be in that failure, so the next time we do something, we can succeed in doing it. Now, one of the things I want to focus on is why exactly is failure necessary? Why is it important? Why must we fail in order to succeed? And there's quite a few reasons behind this. A few of the big reasons is, one, you gain experience. You know, a lot of times when we fail at something, there's a pain that we feel deep inside, whether it's failing at a sport, failing in business, failing at a relationship, whatever it may be that we fail at, we start to feel this deep, intense pain. And when we're in that deep pain is when we tend to reflect on the true nature of things. How many times have you failed and then you started questioning, well, did I really do my best? Did I put forth my best effort? Maybe it was me who did something wrong. Maybe there was somewhere I could have improved. These are all very important and necessary questions that have to be answered if you want to improve and then succeed. So when we fail, we may look at it as we did something wrong. Instead of looking at it that way, I want you to view it as there's just more I could have done right. There's more I could have done differently. With failure, we also gain a wealth of knowledge. A primary example, and one of the best examples you probably hear all the time, is Thomas Edison. Failed at trying to make the light bulb 10,000 times. Now, how many of you out there can honestly say if you tried something and failed 10,000 times that you would keep going? How about 1,000, 100, 10, even 5? A lot of people will quit after just the first try, or maybe the first few tries, and think they're not good enough, or they just aren't ready for this, or they're not prepared for this, or this just isn't where they need to be. And then they go back and revert themselves to whatever it was they were before. You see this a lot in entrepreneurship. Somebody might start a business, fail at that business, and after they fail the first time, their mindset goes to, well, entrepreneurship just isn't for me. And then they go back to the 9-to-5 working, and they end up being miserable for most of their lives. We must understand that the only failure that's bad in my eyes is quitting. As long as you never quit, as long as you take away some lesson from the times that you fail, you can never lose. To me, there is no losing. There's only two options. You either win or you learn from your mistakes. And if you can do that, that means you are progressing. And progress is exactly what life is about. If we can do our part to get a little bit better each day, then we are succeeding in life. And failure is required in order for us to learn. Now, another great thing with failure is you actually do gain a lot of resilience. If you can do things that are outside of your comfort zone and do things that you know you're going to fail at the first time, the second time, the third time, fourth time, fifth time, if you can understand that this is what's required in order to achieve the success you are looking for, then you build up this resiliency and understand that if you fail, it's not the end of the world. It's an opportunity to grow. I always like to use the sports example. How many of us at a young age started playing sports and couldn't throw a ball, couldn't hit a ball, whatever sport it may be? If it's golf, couldn't hit a ball straight, couldn't even hit the ball. It's after multiple practices, you fail, learn something from what you failed on, and then you continuously try and improve. And the more you practice and learn from those mistakes, the better off you will eventually become. Now, there was a great example I saw in an article I was reading the other day about a baby. And when a baby first starts to walk, the baby will stand up, it will try and take a step, and it will fall. It will try and take a step, and it will fall. It will do this over and over and over until eventually it learns from its mistakes and progresses. Now, any of you parents out there, if your child stands up and falls the first time, second time, third time, do you look at that child and go, you have failed, you can't walk, you should just stick to sitting and crawling the rest of your life? No, because we know the more that child practices, the better the child will become at that. And eventually the child will walk and then run. It's unfortunate that it seems this is where the cutoff point is for a lot of people. We might have family, friends that support us and they want us to be happy and they want us to have a lot of success in the world, yet they want us to avoid failure. They believe that with failure comes pain, and with that pain comes depression. It can spiral you way out of control and you can be very down on yourself. But they don't understand that their entire lives, what they have learned, the knowledge they have gained, has come from failure after failure after failure. Now, I want you to think of success as a ladder. The goal is to climb to the very top of the ladder. That success is sitting for you at the top of the ladder. Now, are you going to get there by just jumping immediately to the top? No. You're going to have to take small steps up this ladder in order to succeed. And I want you to view each of those steps as failure. Each time you step on something, you fail, you learn from your mistakes, and then you climb higher. You fail, learn from your mistakes, and then climb higher. And you keep going until you have reached the top of the ladder. Now, something that I think is an absolute great depiction of this is picture driving. I want you to picture success as the gas pedal and failure as the steering wheel. Now, you can just push down the gas pedal and start going with everything, but without failure, you won't be able to steer yourself on the path. If you want to go forward and reach your end destination, you need the gas pedal. You won't be able to get there without the gas pedal, without going through some successes in your life. But to that same point, you will never be able to get to your destination if you don't have the steering wheel. You will crash and burn before it's over. So you need failure in order to succeed. And in order to succeed, you must go through failure. Now, I want to take a little bit here to go over some interesting stories of failure with people that you may not realize. You know, a lot of us look at celebrities, athletes, successful businessmen, and we see them as who they are now. We didn't see any of the work that they put in before it, any of the failures that they went through before it. We weren't there with them from day one, so we don't know the struggles that they went through. But yet, if you were to learn and listen to some of these people, you may realize that they have gone through something very similar to what you have or what you currently are going through now. First one I want to start with is Stephen King, one of the most successful authors of all time. Pretty much everyone out there knows Stephen King. Many movies have been adapted from his books. Has a very interesting mind when it comes to this. Well, did you know that he was very paranoid and tormented by nightmares as a child? He was raised in poverty. He had an addiction to drugs and alcohol, which were his mechanisms to cope with the unhappiness that he felt. A lot of this frustration that he felt towards rejections from publishers, along with the drug use, just caused him to really contemplate violence towards his own children. Writing became his coping mechanism. That coping mechanism turned into him finding his passion and purpose. Now, had he stopped when the first publisher rejected him? Had he stopped at the mindset of, I'm not good enough, I'm just a failure? Who knows what would have happened? We may know a different Stephen King today, but he kept going. He kept writing. And today, he is much happier and he is living a purposeful life. How about Walt Disney? Mickey Mouse creator Walt Disney dropped out of school at a young age in a failed attempt at joining the military. Did you know he had a company early in his ventures in 1921 called Laugh-O-Gram Studios that went bankrupt due to, get this, his lack of ability to run a successful business? He was once fired from a newspaper for not being creative enough. I want you to think about that. Many people would have stopped when that first business failed, when it went bankrupt. They would have stopped when they got fired from a newspaper and were told, you're not creative enough. What would the world be like today had Walt Disney not kept pushing and pursuing his purpose? Where would the world be without Disney? Now, for sure, nowadays, since Disney owns pretty much everything, I don't even know what we would be doing at this point. But it goes back to the do not quit attitude. It's okay to fail, because when you fail, you learn from those mistakes. And who knows, when you learn from these mistakes, you may be finding something as great as Disney. What about Abraham Lincoln? Now, we all know some of the popular stories about him, the famous speech, the freedom of the slaves. Did you know that back in 1831, he failed at business? In 1836, he had a complete and utter nervous breakdown. In 1856, he was defeated in his run for president. Most of his life, he was no stranger to failure. But instead of taking these failures and using it as a point of surrender, he refused to stop trying his best. And one of my favorite quotes of all time actually comes from Abraham Lincoln, which is, "My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure." And of course, the rest is history. In 1861, he was elected as the 16th president of the United States of America. Went on to free the slaves. Let me ask you, what would have happened had Abraham Lincoln stopped at the first, second, or third failure? Albert Einstein. You might know a little bit about Albert Einstein, one of the most brilliant minds that have ever existed. In almost every single book you'll learn in science, Albert Einstein is there. Now, a lot of people hear his name and it's synonymous with being a genius. What do we say to people? You're such an Einstein. But did you know that it wasn't until the age of 9 he was actually able to speak fluently? He was also quite rebellious in school. His rebellious nature led to him getting expelled from school, and he was even refused admittance to the Zurich Polytechnic School. He could have stopped there, but he didn't. He kept going, and again, we know the story. He was the pioneer of the theory of general relativity, and he too has a great quote. "Success is failure in progress." That is great. Remember that. Success is failure in progress. In order to succeed, you go through failure. Just because you haven't achieved anything yet doesn't mean that you too couldn't be an Einstein. What about Bill Gates, one of the richest men in the world, founder of Microsoft? Basically laid the foundation for most of the technology that we're using today. Did you know he was a Harvard dropout? He once co-owned a business called Trafodata, which was a true failure. But he had a real skill and a passion for computer programming that turned this failure into the famous software company we know as Microsoft. Now, this is not to say that dropping out of Harvard will make you into a billionaire, but you must also understand that if something like that does happen to you, if you find that school isn't right for you, and you do have to drop out, it's not the end of the world. Learn from those mistakes, pursue your passion, and continue to move forward. As Bill Gates once said, it's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. Now, I actually want to end this with one of my favorite stories, and he has said possibly the most important quote for my generation in regards to failure, and that is the greatest of all time himself, Mr. Michael Jordan. Ever since I was a young kid, I was mystified by Michael Jordan. He was at his own level in a world of professional athletes who are already on their own level, unique from the public. He was another level above even that. He transcended to a level that we have only seen in sports a few times. Some of the ones that stick out to me, Wayne Gretzky, Tiger Woods, and Tom Brady. I know some of you might give me some flack out there for that. Say, without Bill Belichick, we may not have had the Tom Brady, but respect when respect is due. All throughout Michael Jordan's career, he was told he couldn't do it. He was told he wasn't tall enough. He was told by his coaches that he would never succeed in basketball, that he needed to look elsewhere because basketball just wasn't a career for him. The greatest basketball player of all time was told by multiple coaches and people he will not be successful in basketball. What would have happened if Michael Jordan did not play basketball? What if he gave up in middle school and high school when he was told he'd never be anything? I want to actually end this with his quote on failure. And I want you to listen very carefully to this because there is so much packed into this quote, and it is so extremely powerful to think about. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to begin to view failure differently. View it as a learning opportunity to better yourself. Do not be afraid of failure. Do not be afraid to try something new because of a possible failure that will come. Do not be afraid to pursue your passions or your purpose because you're afraid you will fail at it. Keep going. Keep pushing. Keep learning. And you know what? I'm going to say it. Keep failing. Look at failure as a positive. No successful person in history reached that success without failure. It is necessary, it is important, and it is needed in order for you to succeed. And when you do this, it's important to ignore the naysayers. If you fail once, you're going to be encountered by people that said, well, I told you so. Ignore them. The people saying I told you so are the same people that at the end of their lives reflect on it and say, I wish I would have done things differently. I wish I would have done things that would have put me in a position to be happier. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being with me today. It's an absolute honor and pleasure each time that I sit down to do the research for these episodes and to be able to bring this information directly to you. I am truly humbled and blessed that I get to share my thoughts with you, that I get to share my experiences with you, and that we get to embark on this journey of life together. No one makes it through life alone. We need some support and we need the love around us in order to become a better version of ourselves. And I truly want to let you know that I love each and every one of you out there. I think you are capable of anything you want to achieve. I believe 2020 is going to be a beautiful year for all of you. I wish you all the success in the world. And I want to hear from you in your stories. I want to hear what type of failures are you going to pursue? What are you going to do that you know you're going to fail at the first time? And how are you going to approach that failure? If you want to follow me and my personal journey, head on over to Instagram at Skinny to Fit Life. That's skinny with the number 2, Fit Life. You can follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Purpose Through Fitness. You can follow my blog at purposethroughfitness.com. If there's anybody out there that you know needs to hear this message, needs a little more positivity in their life, please share this with them. If you like the content that I'm bringing, please like and subscribe. It's truly humbling, the support that I've received through this so far, and I hope to continue to touch as many lives as possible and encourage each one of you to live a more positive and purposeful life. And as always, I want to leave a Bible verse that is applicable with today's lesson. This is Proverbs chapter 24, verse 16 from the New International Version. For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again, but the wicked stumble when calamity strikes. Remember that, everyone. No matter what happens, learn from your failures and never, ever, ever give up. Never quit. Keep pushing forward. Many blessings to each of you.